Тарас, доброго
Hi.
дня.
Yeah. Hi, Dmitry. Hi, Dmitry. Yeah. Sorry, microphone was muted, and I want to introduce you once more time, senior level designer from Digital Extremes, Dmitry Tarabanov, and his speech Games for Ukraine, 2 months of game industry help in Ukraine. And thanks for joining us today, and please take your time.
Thank you for having me as a speaker, Taras. I would like to thank Games Gathering Conference for doing what you're doing. It's absolutely necessary. This is something that has been missing since the start of war in Ukraine. It has been visiting for 2 months, the perspective on the events that are happening in Ukraine from the game industry professionals on behalf of Ukraine. And now this gap has been fulfilled, and I encourage all my foreign colleagues, international game developers, to check the presentations that has been done today. Like, please go and watch these reports, listen to these speakers, hear their stories. Some of them are chilling. A lot of them give us courage to continue supporting Ukraine and the Ukrainian game industry in the first place. And I will be talking a lot about support today, and I will be talking about game industry happening today. And it's really something amazing. It's an unprecedented level of support. I would say that because we have been following it quite a while, and it's unprecedented because there was nothing like this before in history. And it's not only about the monetary side of the question. It's not only about the money component of that help. It's also all those non-monetary things, like people supporting with information, spreading the word, volunteering at food banks, you name it. I have seen a lot of good people helping Ukraine internationally. And for this particular presentation, there were also a lot of people in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine that participated in making it happen. This presentation will not be possible in the first place without the help of product analysts from one of the largest studios in Ukraine, from the game that was downloaded 1 billion times. He helped create the flowcharts for this presentation and do the like all financial analysis while being while hearing raid alerts, like air raid alerts. You know, like when they're gonna bomb, there is usually like a loud sound. So I was like writing to him like, okay, do you have this flow chart for me? And like, yeah, I can do it after like bombing is stopped. So that's the harsh reality that some of our team members are going through in order to prepare this presentation for you. I would really love as many game companies and as many people who are in charge of making decisions in order to help or not, like to watch these presentations and also like the other presentations from the conference. You will know what to do when you have the information. Generally, people are not really good at numbers. I'm not an exception. And like there is a fancy counter on our like little website of Games for Ukraine. initiative that counts like the amount of money that was donated to Ukraine from game companies. And as I said, the amount is staggering. I have never seen like this amount of money in my life, not even a fraction of it, and it's a lot. Thank you. I would really love to thank you from the bottom of my heart and from the rest of the game industry in Ukraine and from Ukraine itself. Like, thank you for what you're doing, game industry professionals, companies, and players who are helping to buy all the bundles, who are helping to raise for the charity. I will be asking the question like, how much is enough? Almost like every presentation, because as I said, people are not really good with numbers, and like it sounds like, it looks like an astronomical amount of money. Wow, $192 million. So that's a lot. This counter has been helping like keeping the morale high, like in Ukraine, on the game developers, among the industry, showing that like we're in all of this together. Like when every little counts and it all adds to one large pool that helps Ukraine buy humanitarian aid, food, medicine, a lot of things that are saving lives. So this number is recalculated into literally saving the lives of people, and that's really important. On the other hand, like, what if I say to you that this counter hasn't moved much for the last 3 weeks? Is it good, bad? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's still a large number, right? Because it says that video game companies are helping Ukraine. Though if you look at it in perspective, like, it looks like there was not much happening for at least like the last couple of weeks. So the number didn't move higher, or maybe we didn't have all the data. That's also a problem, because we have access of only the data which is shared publicly, and we're just like volunteers collecting information available from the statements. Whatever is there in the statements, we just combine the two numbers together and we update our counter. So it looks like the help is decreasing, or it's not happening anymore. Well, that's another thing about people being irrational. It's hard to judge. It's hard to find out like how much is enough, like, and that's what we will be talking about today. We will be asking if does Ukraine need any more help from the game industry, and should we bother? Important disclaimer that none of us is an expert at helping during wars. A lot of us do help. None of us are expert. Like, we don't have experience in building shelters. We don't have experience in figuring out what medical aid is needed, and we're not experts. Even if I will be saying that, okay, I'm talking to you on behalf of Games for Ukraine initiative, and this is an initiative established by the game professionals for the game professionals to help Ukraine together. Even then, like, none of us is an expert at helping during wars. So what are we experts at, like, in the game industry? Like, I can speak about myself. Like, I have been working in the game industry for a while, and my connection to Ukraine is that I have been working as a studio creative director for many years for Gameloft Kharkiv. Currently, this studio has evacuated because Kharkiv has been massively shelled for the last 2 months. I was lucky to work on Rainbow Six game, which was developed in that company, and our studio was pretty massive, and we also have the studio in Lviv. Before that, I was published science fiction writer with around 1 million copies of my fiction and non-fiction, published a lot of those in Russian language, a small amount in Ukrainian. And currently, for the last 7 years, I have been living in Canada and working in Warframe for the last 5 years. The digital extreme company Warframe. It's a fantastic game. It is basically like a dream job for me in level design, and that's what I believe I try to like slowly become an expert in. I can like show in 1 minute just what I'm doing normally, like not for the last 2 months. So normally we would design levels, open world, a lot of procedural stuff, a lot of things very dynamic, a lot of parkour and a lot of traversal, a lot of things moving here and there, and the technicalities of this, using a lot of tropes from science fiction, like this Sarlacc pit cameo, making a lot of bells, whistles, things that go boom. So yeah, there are a lot of things that would normally do as level designers. Like, for example, this is our way of saying enemy space battleship, go wreck yourself. So important thing to say, you probably realize that I'm not really belonging to this event. I'm not under bombs, and this is a luxury. This is a luxury because I'm not risking my life now, and a lot of companies and people who are helping Ukraine from other countries are not risking their lives. And it's important to keep helping just because of that, because we're not risking our lives, and we're helping those who risk their lives every day. Two months ago, we probably knew it was coming, but nobody knew that it will be an actual fact that the war would start. And we were literally watching it online, my friend from Australia and myself here, like 12 hours difference in time. We were watching it. We first figured out on Reddit before even the bombs hit the ground. And we watched how the enemy state started a war against free nation Ukraine under false premise, and how it was justified in an hour-long video that Ukraine doesn't exist and it needs liberation. And Then there were airstrikes, missiles hitting almost all major cities around Ukraine. And we watched that live. We were not able to somehow like affect what was happening, but because none of us is expert at helping during wars, but you got to do something. So my first decision was, it was a therapy probably. In the first hours, I wrote a message to LinkedIn people in the industry. I said, my dear friends working in the game industry, this is what happened. And I tried to provide as many information as possible on what happened, because I didn't know whether next day the world will wake up and they will read the news and they're, oh, well, Ukraine is being liberated. That's fine. So I was trying to at least tell my co-workers around the world that that's not what's happening. It's not much. It's what I call do something. As Ukrainians here, like we sometimes companies suggested like grief counselors, but we don't need that, because we know that when something bad is happening to our countries, the best thing is to do something, is to act. And Ukrainian expats are, like all the Ukrainians that live abroad, are pretty educated what to do in the situations like this. They almost immediately write letters to members of parliaments or senators in the United States. They gather the rallies with Ukrainian handmade flags and stuff. They call the press and give the interviews. They donate, they volunteer. And all of this has been done by at least our Ukrainian community here in the first 24 hours after the war started. I guess there was not much sleep in those 24 hours, but we knew that we're not given enough, and I know that we're not given enough even now. So the question was what to do further, like what can we do? And one of the answers was that maybe we can try do something with our professional field. Maybe we can search for help there. And two things happened. We never asked our company, but my company, Digital Extremes, was the first in the North America, at least that we are aware of, that donated 100,000 for Ukraine in the first 48 hours. We didn't ask for this, and when it happened, I cried, and I cried a lot because my brain immediately recalculated this into food, medicine, and a lot of essential help that was going to help save lives. Thank you, Digital Extremes. I'm happy that I work in your company. Another important thing happened is that my LinkedIn plea, that like self-therapy, the LinkedIn plea to game professional around the world has been seen like 500 times. It's like 500,000 times. And to compare, like any other post that I made after that has been seen maybe like 1,000, 2,000, and this one was like 500,000. So it might be an accident. It might be because LinkedIn somehow changed the visibility of Ukrainian posts. It's hard to tell, but that's the number that I have. But both these numbers were important. There's another number, is that like there are a lot of Ukrainians in Canada, and there are a lot of Ukrainians in international game companies, including ours. And not only Ukrainians were helping and like participating in the rallies and donating. A lot of Russian friends, especially those who moved out before 2014, were helping Ukraine and were participating in this like foreign activity. Because if every good person keeps doing something, there will be a lot of help as the result. And those two numbers, like help from a game company that we didn't ask for, and the realization that we can somehow cooperate with other professionals gave us the idea that, okay, let's gather together, let's spread the word, keep doing this, keep doing something. And a lot of people like in other game companies were doing this, and not only in North America and not only in Europe, Poland and a lot of Polish companies were among the first ones who started doing the same thing, like on the other side of the planet. So it's all about good people who start doing something. And the indie game company, they raised, with players' help, almost $1 million of financial aid for Ukraine. Then it was a snowball, like many companies, almost like every other company in the game industry, started donating money for Ukraine. And we, like, you know, you gotta do something for the therapy when you know that you don't do much. Like, for example, when there was already this snowball effect, we were not sure that like any of our efforts will contribute to this. Probably none of our efforts contributed to this astronomical sum of money that the game industry collected. And so for us, it was like a therapy. Like, you know, like some people here in Canada, we have like Canadian Center here where we're collecting food, and a lot of people in Canada were just bringing the food that they have, and they were giving away because it helps, but it also helps you to feel that you're doing something. Maybe it's not really effective or it doesn't save hundreds of lives, but at least it makes you stay focused on the goal. And one of our self-therapies was to make a website where any industry professional go and see like the list of companies that donated for Ukraine, their statements, what they are like wonderful, kind words that they are saying to Ukraine, and how they show their support, not only with money, but with a lot of things, including their employees like working in a food bank, which is a beautiful thing to do because it takes really long time to dedicate yourself as a foreigner to start helping somehow, and you gotta start somewhere. So we gotta start somewhere. So like a couple of friends here, expats like around the world in game industry, made this little website. And to make it practical somehow, we focused on the list of donors, the companies that donated, their statements, the charities. We gathered all the charities that were helpful in Ukraine, and we made sure there is a donate section, and you can go there and you can donate. And we had reports, so like some financial reports about like what are the best practices and so on. So it was an initiative established by game professionals for the game professionals to help Ukraine together, Games for Ukraine. And we we met a lot of beautiful people there, like who were supporting our goal to help Ukraine. The volunteers, a lot of them. So a lot of people spreading information. The funny thing is that like the smallest expense that we made was probably like that website. So it was $50. And to the reports, how game industry has been helping Ukraine for the last 2 months. Okay, I was really slow. I think I asked to have a 30-minute session, but I'll probably ask for an extension if I'm the last speaker. I hope the administrators are allowing me to do this, because I'm the last speaker. So please don't throw stones at me. Thank you. So
I think it's okay.
Oh, thank you, Taras. So as I said, almost all game industry helped. Maybe all of the game companies helped, but we have access to only like those contributions that were officially released in statements made by the companies. And again, like there is a lot of money, and it's not money, it's a way to save the lives. Thank you for this. Most of the donations were made in the first 2 or 3 weeks, and after that, some beautiful things started to happen. Like the first one was a game bundle, which featured almost 1,000 game by companies like you never heard of, except some of them. And they raised an astronomical amount of $6 million. It was followed by Humble Bundle, which raised even more, $20 million, with a lot of high-profile companies contributing their titles to this bundle. And finally, there was Fortnite that raised, it's incredible. It's $144 million. Well, the screen says it. Thank you, Epic Games, and thank you all the players who made it possible. It's a lot. And we noticed one thing, that the direct donations from the companies were only around 20% of all the money that was donated. And this is what we realized when we made the Months of War financial report. Well, you usually do not report on like what you don't make financial reports for charity, but we wanted to figure out the big picture. And the big picture was showing that the direct donations from the company made 20% of all donations. 24% were coming from game bundles, and 55% were coming from Fortnite. When recalculated, we realized that 91% of all the money donated were raised for players' help through one of these 3 means: game bundles, time-limited game proceeds like Fortnite. They gave all their proceeds from Fortnite to 2 weeks. It's a lot. and from game content, selling Ukraine-themed game content in the live service games. So we try to see where does it go? Like, can we forecast like will there be more help or less help, and what is the trend? And we said that because it looked exponential, we thought that okay, maybe it follows the bell curve of early market, mainstream market, when it goes from innovators to early adopters, and then to early majority, late majority, and laggards. So we thought that we are here in visionaries, and we made a projection that more bundle sales and promotion on industry-leading platforms and marketplaces will happen on Steam, Epic Games Store, Good Old Games, Ubisoft, Uplay, EA Games, Origin Store, Sony PlayStation and Xbox stores, Nintendo, Apple, Google, and others. We thought that more companies would contribute their back catalog, maybe some old hits, or like new games that underperformed or overlooked. And we thought that more flagship game companies would donate proceeds from their brands to Ukraine, mostly live service games. And after publishing it, we realized that it was visual thinking, and that's probably what we forecast. It looked really optimistical, but we didn't think about the chasm. And it's like if this forecast was really following this paradigm, usually there is a chasm between the visionaries and pragmatics, and like the massive companies start supporting any innovation only after they realize that it's pragmatic for them to do this. And the next 3 weeks showed that Fortnite culminated like the contributions raised for Ukraine, and then the contributions started to decline. We have been there, like on the position of companies many times, and every time when I go to the not the drugstore, but like the grocery store, and they usually ask me when I check out, they ask like, would you like to donate $5 for our new case? And every time it's some other case, whether it's food bank or it's help with children. And sometimes I'm in the mood, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I think that, well, there was a war in Ukraine, and you're asking me to donate for saving the sharks, for example. So it's I have a lot of like excuses not to donate, and one of them would be next time, or thank you, I already donated. And yeah, we don't have like a lot of money, and game companies, they need this money in order to develop better games, and that's what we need to realize. Like especially those large companies, they have a lot of expenses. Some of them like spend more than what they get, and at the same time, when we are already talking about kids, according to UNICEF, 4.8 million kids of Ukraine's 7.5 million were replaced due to war. UNICEF person who said that they never seen it like in many years that they've been working in the organization. So when we decide that it's time to pull out the credit card when we don't have cash and to continue the expenses, what will be the the reason that will make us do so, because it will be losses. It will deal a lot of losses to the company. It will deal, like, we will have to sacrifice our desires or our plans for a cause. So we're back to our question, like, does Ukraine need any more help from the game industry, and should we bother? Okay, let's have external opinion. You all know Harari, a philosopher, author of Sapiens and Homo Deus books, which are usually, you probably read them, like they appear on top searches from Bill Gates and other like top influencers around the world, like the books that you need to read after Christmas. And he said that what's at stake in Ukraine is the direction of human history. You can read his article. I think it was at The Economist or Financial Times. So it like he will explain it better because I'm not a historian, and I don't know about much about history. And when I was a student, like I was surprised why the history book that were learning like Ukrainian history from was written by the Canadian expat. And then I realized why. It's probably because it has like less propaganda, like Soviet propaganda, than what they knew like in Canada. And there was one interesting story about figuring out history. Usually when it's winter ends in Canada, it becomes warm and like people start going outside and eating ice cream. And that's what we did with my friend who recently launched a Hello game. So we went to a little museum nearby, and it was dedicated to World War II and Canada's help in World War II. And one thing that we found out was that there was this device, and if you zoom in, it says warning, and right under it there is the same word in a Russian language, which means the same thing. So, and I asked the curator at the museum, why is that? Like, why do you have like Russian language in Canada? And they said that, well, it's because it was part of mutual aid. It was a like financial aid program established by Canadian government in order to provide equipment for the British, and then they will give it to Soviets to help fight Nazi Germany. So, but what does it have to do with game industry? As we know that we're not expert at helping during wars. Like the countries should do them. Like we pay our taxes to the governments, and they should provide the military help. Because that's right. There is one thing game companies do best, and this is to entertain. That's what we are expert at. And like during war, like I figured it out here in one of the book outlets around Canada, is that there was Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman comic books published during the war years, and they are reissued now. They cost like $10. You can find them. It's literally about those superheroes contributing their efforts in fighting the Nazi Germany. So it was entertaining, and it was also spreading the word about who are we helping to. So I went to a person, a friend of mine who I adore. He is a great professional. He used to work in Canada as probably the first game designer who worked here, and then he worked on many other like massive hits in game industry, and he also is good at business development. So I went to him with my foolish little agenda, and I asked him, okay, there is not much help coming from game industry anymore. Like, is there a way we can ask them to maybe donate some games to their game bundles, or donate their game proceeds, or create some content and sell it as well? And he said the very correct thing is that was going to be the robbery. Why? Because what they could have donated, they probably already donated, and like we don't have like any moral rights to ask for more help on top of that. And he is right, especially when the companies around the world, they're having a lot of losses, and they will report huge losses because of losing the Russian audience, because they had to stop supporting their games in Russian territory, and they're not selling the games to Russia anymore. So they helped Ukraine. They're taking a lot of losses because of not supporting games in Russia. So why would we ever ask for more? And I think we should not. But then again, he asked him, like, can we do something so there is help, but that doesn't create losses? And he said, okay, yeah, that's basically, we can get help, like, only if the expenses that the game companies the expenses that are needed for creating that content and selling it to Ukraine to raising the money for Ukraine are like zero, so it doesn't cost them anything, or maybe it doesn't cost them more than what the gfu.dev website cost to us. And there was one case that surfaced, that League of Legends, they created a costume for some of the characters, which was like Bumblebee themed, and they were selling this costume, and the proceeds from selling this costume, they were given to Ukraine, and they reported in their games they raised more than $4 million. They didn't state what part of that amount contributed, which amount was due to the costumes, but there was probably more than zero. And so how can we follow their example? How can game companies follow their example? And how can they sell the content which doesn't cost them much and raise money for Ukraine? And one of the ideas that we had, like on the example of DOTA, I have a friend of mine who has been producing a lot of content for DOTA and other games by Valve, and they would like the company was doing like a great job in having this like marketplace with a lot of content that you can that the gamers or game industry professional or hobbyists even were creating and raising some money from it. Like some of the money was going to the company, some of the money was going to the artists. It sounds fair. So the idea was like, what if we take the artists like Pavel, and what if, for example, DOTA features the content they created and says that every or at least some of the money will go for a good cause, that it will go to help Ukraine if the players buy it. I think the players are not spending the money that they designated for buying fun stuff, they probably have some piggy bank for charity in the compartment of the brain. So I think it will not cause losses for the company. I may be wrong, of course. And there are a lot of companies like this, mostly live service games, that can follow this lead. Even the company where I work, we have 10-gen contest for the artist. Like I haven't talked much about this with my company, but I'm pretty sure if there is a possibility to somehow reorganize it so it helps Ukraine, they will be able to do it because they're very helpful. Recently, they ran a stream for collecting money for one of the charities for the children in Ukraine, and you name it. There are a lot of companies that can try to raise more money without losing money and give this money to Ukraine. So we're asking to allow Ukrainian game artists to help your games to help Ukraine. There are a lot of Ukrainian artists that made beautiful games possible: Stalker, Metro, Sherlock Holmes, Warface. There are a lot of international game studios that work in this field. Ubisoft or Gaming, Gameloft, and there are a lot of Ukrainian expats like myself around the world, and there are beautiful artists here as well that maybe can contribute. Just an idea. So let me know, both the artists and the companies, that if this is something that can become a reality, if this is something that can happen. Maybe it's, again, wishful thinking, but if it's more than nothing, then it already helps. That's the email that you can use in order to contact us, or just go to the website. One thing that I'll probably be wrapping up, and one thing that I was asked by a couple of people who contacted me when they figure out that there will be a lecture. So I was asked to ask you not to donate a lot of money to one particular company, but that's up to you to decide. Why they asked me about it? It's mostly because when we checked what companies were donating to which organizations, we figured out that only 10% money in the first month was received by Ukraine-based organizations, and after 2 months, it was only 5% that was donated to Ukrainian organizations. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Well, if the people from these organizations were not contacting me in order to ask for the source of fund, and I don't have any funds, I only connect those who are willing to donate to those who are receiving the donate and convert it to help. So there are a lot of companies, there are a lot of organizations that provide wonderful help. They risk lives in Ukraine, and you can find there if you go to our website, gfu.dev/donate. You're probably wondering where Ukrainian companies are donating, and they are donating to different things, but a lot of my friends and a lot of the companies that I talk to in Ukraine are supporting the organizations that are helping with the defensive effort of Ukraine as a free nation. One of them is Come Back Alive. It's the largest of them. And Stalker recently raised almost $1 million for this Come Back Alive organization. And none of the international companies donated for this particular cause. None of them donated for defensive efforts of Ukraine. And I guess that's also, there are a lot of mentality, morality questions here, but I think that Ukrainian game developers who are there in Ukraine realize that the humanitarian aid alone will not save lives of the volunteers who are fighting for Ukraine if they don't have an armor, if they don't have the body armor or the helmet. So some of them don't have it by default, and a lot of Ukrainian game developers are helping them to get those helmets and body armor to be more protected and be able to risk their lives without risking their lives in order to help Ukrainians. One of the mentions, you probably listened to this report. It's by FRAG Lab, like one of the largest companies in Ukraine, who are launching like a huge AAA shooter soon. They started our organization. I think it's now called Help Lab, which is they announced that they will be renamed as Help Lab. So I suggest following them, and because that's what they do as well. That's the video game company that after the war started, they focused on providing helmets, body armor, and thermal vision devices to Ukrainian defenders. Again, you can find all these charities in gvu.dev donate. There was a lot of personal stories, and one of the stories was that a friend of mine who we co-designed Rainbow Six together. He ended up volunteering and serving in territorial defenses as one of the defenders of Kharkiv, and he reached out to us and asked if we can provide them some vehicles. And it was puzzling for me because none of the game companies were donating for the cause like that. And so what we did, we just contacted the people who can find the vehicles, and these were also game developers from Ukraine. And we reached out to other game professionals, individuals, not the companies, because the companies would probably never do that. But if you think about the most famous shooter in the world and the most famous racing games in the world, some of the top people from those companies helped to make these vehicles possible, and I hope they will help saving lives of those for serving with my friend there. And it also makes a good story because Rainbow Six person was helped by another game developers around the world. So we'll probably stop here. There was supposed to be another personal story here, because how much is enough? I don't know. I was about to wrap this up and to give up and stop participated in this initiative maybe on the third week, because there was like no hope that we can somehow influence the video game companies. And this is when one of my family members was caught by the invaders, and he spent 2 days in captivity with a bag on his head, and he was used as a shield in order to enter the villages. And he was luckily saved, and he escaped. Now he's all right. So I always remember this short story from Harry Harrison, one of my favorite writers. It was about a spaceship that was going down deep into the atmosphere of Jupiter, and there were 3 people there, 2 scientists and 1 military professional, and the pressure was growing around their like little spaceship, and there was no way they can come back. There was only like a teleport device in the middle, but it needs to be calibrated, and they started teleporting small objects like teacup, and then they moved to the to small animals like mice, and some of those mice were like all messed up when they were teleported to Earth because the device was not calibrated. And finally, they calibrated it all right so that they can send the mice back to their home planet. It looked like all right, but they didn't calibrate the device on the person first, and the scientists, they were under this huge pressure from the atmosphere. They were breaking mentally, and the military person with them, who was prepared for the situations like this, he volunteered to be sent to Earth from this teleporting device to test if it's calibrated all right. And the soldier was sent back to Earth, and when he went out of the teleport device, he looked all right, but he didn't have any mental activity, so he was like a vegetable. So there was no way to fix him anyhow. And these 2 scientists who were under stress all the time, they were under pressure, they immediately gathered the sense together, and they realized that they probably should focus on that goal, that they have to calibrate the device properly, and they returned to their work. So keep doing something. Thank you. And sorry for this taking 2 times more time that it was supposed to. I don't know if we have time for questions. Taras, I don't hear you. You're muted again, I think.
So. Thank you, Dmitry, for your session. It was very, very interesting, and a lot of information and such deep thoughts. Thank you for sharing with us. I believe we have a lot of questions in our chat in Pine, but I think you can answer them directly and talk to our watchers, our audience. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for joining us today. It was an honor to meet you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Slava Ukraini.
Slava.